A very crucial step, like the abrogation of 370. When they have ups and downs, somewhere we tend to get pulled in, views will be expressed. Sometimes some of it may translate into politics. We need to build that into our calculation. Though there was enormous pressure on us that we, maintained our relationship with Russia. I would say today that the AI era actually makes the nuclear age look like a walk in the park. When you now see these new debates unfolding, chips war, semiconductors, data sovereignty, take this very seriously. I do think that, other than metrics like, GDP or military capabilities, today this technology strengths of a country, again in the overall mix, will have a much bigger say. I don't have to only plan for a crisis, I have to plan for every day.
Namaskar and welcome to Indian Diplomacy, show on India's national broadcaster Doordarshan about Indian foreign policy, India's international relations and how India is proactively shaping a better world order. Viewers, this is a very special episode focused on the completion of 11 years of successful governance and foreign policy under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We are entering the 12th year of the Modi era. And what does this mean in terms of India's growing stature and importance in the world? What have been the major challenges? How have we tried to overcome them in these past 11 years from 2014 to 2025? That is the focus of the show. And to take us through this, it's a distinct and unique honor for me to once again welcome none other than India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar. Dr. Jaishankar needs no introduction. He served as Foreign Secretary under Prime Minister Modi and then as External Affairs Minister, and he's been the main articulator and shaper and architect of our role in the world for these many years. So, Dr. Jaishankar, welcome back. Such an honor, sir, to have you on National Broadcaster.
It's a great pleasure. Good to be here with you.
So, the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about 11 years is that Prime Minister Modi's, remarkable longevity as national leader. I mean, after Jawaharlal Nehru, nobody has won 3 successive general elections like he has. And that political stability and continuity that comes from having him at the helm. We saw recently during G7 summit, there were graphics showing, almost all the countries that are present there have had 4 or even 5, heads of government over the last 10 years. But we have had this singular colossal figure, Prime Minister Modi. How much of an advantage would you say has that been for India, both domestically and internationally, to have this kind of a stable, continuous, and strong government for so many years?
Well, I think there are very big advantages, but I would say longevity, as you call it, is just one of them, because you can be in office for a long time. The question is what impact you have. So, it is, if you have a vision, the ability to translate that vision on the ground, you have ideas, you are regarded as with respect by your peers, all of that is also very much a factor. And of course, I mean, no question, as you say, I would say today probably in the democratic world he would be one of the longest, the senior most, among the senior most leaders. So, but it's a both an issue of experience in office, but also I would say the power of his ideas, the willingness to engage with others to shape the world, because he's also been extremely active. I mean, you cannot make an impact in the world if you haven't chosen to visit your key partners. Partners like UAE, Australia, even neighbors like Sri Lanka and Nepal, who for years went without seeing the Indian Prime Minister, going there.
Presence, yeah.
So, it's his activity and energy level as well. So, I would say yes, 11 years, yes, but look at the energy and commitment over those 11 years, look at the ideas and their impact and the contribution over those 11 years. I think it's a package.
Speaks for itself. Sir, the other point I wanted to raise at the outset was about long term horizon and ambition for the country. We have the Viksit Bharat goal, we have the leading power goal. 2047, India has not been used to having leaders in the past who would set such a long, targets looking into the future, well into the future. So that kind of long term horizon, how much has it helped you as External Affairs Minister in planning our foreign policy? Because in the past people used to say, oh, Indian foreign policy is very ad hoc, we just react to situations and on the spot. But then if you have this stable continuous rule,
yes.
and if you have a longer term goals like PM Modi has said, probably that helps us to think through as to how we envisage the world 5 or 10 years down the line and prepare for them. So your thoughts on that aspect, sir?
Well, yes, I mean, I think he has an ambition for the country, and in that sense he very much captures the national sentiment. I think as a nation, as a society, we are far more self-confident. We are also far more capable than in the past, and I think in many ways Prime Minister Modi captures that in his persona. But it's not just enough to have a long term vision. You need the building blocks, you need the concepts. So if you look at this 11 years, for example, we've had a neighborhood first, where we have taken on the primary responsibility of building these deeper relationships in the neighborhood. Then you have the extended neighborhood. He's done an extraordinary reach out to the Gulf. This was a region which in many ways was neglected politically before. He has deepened with Act East, the relationship with the ASEAN. He's taken it further east into the Indo-Pacific. In fact, the concept of a Indo-Pacific itself. He has, I think, been the first Prime Minister to articulate a maritime policy through the Sagar and now Mahasagar outlook. So and overall at the big picture level, he has also put forward a kind of a, use whatever word, I think multi-alignment or a very strong independent stance and the right to engage as per our national interest and not be pushed into any exclusive relationship. So these are all, I think, part of the road towards that vision. Now there are other dimensions. I described to you purely diplomatically, but there's an economic dimension, there's a diaspora dimension, there's a technology dimension. Who do we partner with? What do we get for our national development? So I would say yes, absolutely. He has given us a kind of a goal out there, to work for, but he's also charted out the pathway in many ways to get that.
Right. Dr. Jaishankar, you have described the Prime Minister's style as a kind of a interactive leadership, and I would like to know, and our viewers would like to know, how much personal guidance you actually take from him, maybe not in day-to-day affairs, but in the overall direction and on big questions, grand strategy, all these things. Obviously you report to him, so to what extent you are the practitioner of the diplomacy, but he is the top political leader. So people would like to know, have there been any critical junctures or moments when maybe you were yourself not so sure, but you took his advice on which path to take or what choice to take. So viewers would like to know how External Affairs Minister works with the Prime Minister.
No, I can understand that interest or curiosity, but I would put it at really two levels. One is what we spoke about, the conceptualization. How do we deal with the Gulf? How do we build these maritime relationships? How should we approach Africa? When you look at the Western world, if there is a differentiated picture, how does that work to our advantage? That's one way, one aspect of it. The other sometimes can be situations. Let me give you 2-3 practical examples.
Yes.
As you know, with our deepening commitment to the diaspora, we've done a lot of evacuations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have one going on right now.
Operation Sindhu.
Operation Sindhu. But if I were to look at them, and Ganga, Operation Ganga in Ukraine was the most complex in a way, because you are evacuating while a war is going on. And what happens is he sets a goal. I mean, you have a very clear sense of what needs to be done. Okay.
Like get our 22,000 people
yeah,
back.
yeah. Then the PM is very interactive in how you plan it out. You get the resources. So if you say, well, you know, we will need this, we'll need the airlines, we'll need the Air Force, so depending on what you are asking for the people, and where necessary, you know, if I were to go to him, which actually happened in Operation Ganga, to say you need to call up a president or a prime minister because we are having a problem out there, you know, he does it. So in many, you know, his working style in a way would be set the goal, give the resources, monitor the progress, but wherever you are required to step back, but give the person who is tasked with it a lot of operational freedom. Now, I will give you a very different example. Also, you know, when the Ukraine war happened and we came under pressure in terms of our oil purchases.
Right.
Okay. Now, I was going out of the country, I was going initially to the US and then to Europe. And again, when I went to him for instructions, he was very clear, which was that, look, I have to protect the Indian consumer in terms of, you know, the
prices at the pump.
The prices at the pump.
Yeah.
Because it is not just prices at the pump, it is probably the biggest driver of inflation if it gets out of hand. So, be very clear. I mean, this is what we need to do at home. Now, you find a way of explaining it or defending it outside. So, I was very clear what my mission was. Okay, fine, you know, the words, the occasion, the arguments may be mine, but I had a very clear mandate or a very clear position really to explain. Or I will give you a third example, you know, you know, when Sri Lanka got into the very deep economic trouble. Now, again, both finance minister and I were working in tandem on that, and you know, we could see he had a very deep commitment towards you know, helping out Sri Lanka, because he realized the consequences if things really went downhill. And we were given again you know, I mention it because it was actually an extraordinarily big commitment we made to a country to in such a situation. So, I mention this to you because often, you know, when you have very sort of challenging situations, first of all, it is important to have clarity at the top. Then the system knows what are you working towards. For someone who is doing the diplomacy, if you you know, you do not need someone to give you the you know, dot the i's and cross the t's. You need to know where are you going, what are you doing, what is your argument or your goal. And I think that is where, so for me it has been a very comfortable working relationship, because you know, it has now been 11 years, first as foreign secretary and now as AM, and that very interactive, and you know, he makes himself available for that also. So,
wonderful, that is an eye opener for our viewers, I am sure. Dr. Jaishankar, last 11 years we have had a lot of unavoidable national security crisis. We have just had one few months ago also with our western neighbor. And one of the things I have observed, and I have written, you have endorsed my book Crunch Time also, where I spoke that our strategic culture has shifted and has hardened. So, and you have said that, you know, if the terrorists are deep inside Pakistan, we will go deep into Pakistan and get them. Now, this kind of what may be called chutzpah or self-confidence or willingness to take risks to protect our citizens and to protect the territorial integrity of India, this we are seeing, you know, that there is no longer that old, you know, the monkey is off the back, that we were a soft state. So, I would like you to reflect, you have seen this closely, the evolution of this strategic culture as has changed in the last 11 years. How come we have become so steely and so full of resolve when in the past there have been major disappointments in defending national security from previous regimes? What is this cultural shift that you have seen, and why do you think it's happened? Obviously PM, but if you'd like to tell our audiences how India became braver and a courageous nation that has regained its valor.
Well, let me give you a kind of a context to what you are asking. I want you to reflect actually on the history of our relationship with Pakistan. Take 4 or 5 crucial decisions, okay, in 1948 to allow them to retain Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Okay. Then you had a prolonged period where you allowed them to in a sense do a parallel nuclear program when we actually had a much earlier lead, and a lot of it was delayed decision making on the nuclear side. And finally 26/11, where one of the probably the worst terrorist assault on any city anywhere in the world was let pass unpunished. Okay. Now, why I am mentioning this to you is it's not a single moment, it is a overall sense that we had decades of a policy and outlook towards Pakistan. And for many of us, I think for a lot of people of our generation, here I count ourselves, meaning we are all aware citizens at that point of time. I think Mumbai attack was in many ways a kind of a turning point. And the sentiment in this country was, look, now enough is enough, things have to change. Okay, so in a way Prime Minister Modi gave them one last chance to leave the path of terrorism. Now, thereafter, if you see, we've actually by Uri crossing the IB, then crossing the LOC,
yes,
then Balakot IB, now by Operation Sindoor striking at Muridke and Bhavalpur amongst others. What we have done is to really create a new normal, a sense that look, the initiative will not always be with you, that you cannot do horrible things and then think that there is impunity because you are on that side. You are making them question their basic assumptions. Now, that may happen when in counter-terrorism is concerned, but also I would argue in tandem a very crucial step like the abrogation of 370. So, it comes as a package. You should not see this as a single issue or a single strike and an operation. This is part of a holistic thinking.
And what is the propelling force behind this, this new attitude, this new culture?
In a way, I go back to your first question. I think it is the mood of the country, but it is also the leadership of the Prime Minister. And to my mind, in a way, Prime Minister Modi is a leader of his times. It's the public sentiment, the change, the evolution of public sentiment, and in many ways I would argue the deepening of democracy beyond the old, the narrower circles that have actually created. Look, we've at least been long enough to remember, say, the pre-14, but in my case, well before that.
Yes.
The country has changed, no question about it. And in many ways, Prime Minister Modi reflects that change of mood, change of sentiment, change of self-confidence.
Absolutely. So, talking of change, if you look at the neighborhood, we have had last 11 years, a lot of volatility, a lot of regimes collapsing. You already mentioned Sri Lanka, but there are so many others, and unexpected sudden changes that have brought about dilemmas for us. So, this whenever there is a regime change, people instantaneously pass judgment that it's either a loss for India or a victory for India, or they say that it's a win for China or a loss for China. But here I'd like you to reflect on the neighborhood first for last 11 years, which has been in operation. Do we have a bigger strategy to deal with the entire neighborhood on the basis of this principle, and do we have ways and means to sustain our influence and interest in all these neighboring countries, which are in a way like our first layer of defense in a global set, in a global standing? So have we got a big picture approach to our neighborhood, and these occasional political churning within these countries, to what extent are we able to buffer from them?
See, our neighboring countries also have their politics. Okay, they have their ups and downs, and we clearly loom large in their politics. So it's natural, when they have ups and downs, somewhere we tend to get pulled in, views will be expressed. Sometimes some of it may translate into politics. We need to build that into our calculation. Everything you said is exactly what was the basis of neighborhood first, which is, look, there will be changes, there will be political forces coming who may not be biased in our favor. Some of them may be distant or different. So what we have tried to do is really to create a culture and a system and a collective interest, so that even if there is instability, the collective interest is stronger than those who are advocating distancing. Now, it sounds very theoretical, but I want you to look at the practical examples. I spoke about Sri Lanka. Think about it today. There is a JVP government, a JVP president, and a JVP dominated parliament in Sri Lanka. Yet I was the first foreign minister to go in there. Prime Minister Modi was the first prime minister to go in there. President Desanayake came here. You look today at the state of our cooperation.
And historically, JVP was supposed to be anti-India.
So even Maldives, a country with which initially there were periods of difficulty in adjustment, but again once it settled down, you've seen today. I was there inaugurating multitude of Indian development projects. Take Nepal, where often in their internal politics also very often we get dragged in. So look, what we have to do, we should not expect smooth sailing all the time. That never happens for any country with its neighbors. But you should also not throw up your hands when things get difficult. That's that's poor planning. I think what we are doing is the sensible thing, which is create systems, create common interests, create an inherent stability in that relationship, so that whichever is the regime, at the end of the day, the logic, look, every one of our neighbors must realize that working with India will give you benefits. Not working with India has a cost. Now, some take longer to realize, some take some understand it better. One exception of course is Pakistan, because it has defined its identity under the army in a way in which it has an inbuilt hostility in it. So, if you put Pakistan aside, I think the logic would apply everywhere else.
Yeah, the rationality, working with India brings benefits, says External Affairs Minister viewers, and I think it's just a no brainer. So he's saying every neighbor should realize that, and then we cooperate and benefit mutually.
Yeah, but one thing, Sreeram, it's maybe a no brainer, but still you have to demonstrate it. So what has happened is, when we helped Sri Lanka, the message went to the neighborhood that nobody else stood with them. IMF was dragging its feet, but India can step forward. When you sent vaccines, nobody else was giving them vaccines. When Ukraine, the war started, and you helped out with fertilizers or with food shipments. So this is not an this is not an just a phrase or
a notional thing. It's actually something that through our action we demonstrate. Yes, sir. Yes. Dr. Jaishankar, you are a very astute reader of the tea leaves globally, and you have written two best-selling books connecting to these themes, India Way and Why Bharat Matters. I want you to take you to the global scenario and request your thoughts on this question about the sea changes in the behavior and attitudes of the great powers. We have seen that over the last 11 years. What we used to assume about them no longer necessarily hold true. They are also evolving and changing just as we are. So, my assessment is growing assertiveness of China and increasing unpredictability of the United States. These do pose significant challenges to our overall approach to the world and to our interests. So, what do you think has been our strategy to deal with these shifts in the way the Chinese and the Americans have behaved over the last 11 years, and how are we adapting and adjusting to these changes? And do you think multi-alignment, which you already mentioned, is the only way forward to manage this dual reality, which no longer conforms to the old assumptions?
Look, in a way what you are describing are trend lines. Okay, they didn't happen one fine day. They have developed over many years. So, people saw it coming. Question is one again, how seriously you take it, and then what do you do to plan for it, because sometimes people see it, but they just hope, well, maybe it won't happen. In our case, what we have systematically tried to do is really deepen that posture, strategic posture of ours to have good relations with all the major countries, but also other regions, so that we get into the optimal positioning. So, I would say in each of these cases. So, in a sense we come back to this, we have been planning for a multipolar world. One, of course, we desire it because that gives us a higher profile and more influence, but it isn't just a question of our wishes. That's the direction the world is moving in. So, even we used to talk of the West, but today you can see gaps between Europe and the United States, okay, or other Western countries and the United States. So, if you look at the diplomacy of the last, foreign policy of the last 11 years, you will see the continuous consistent theme underpinning it is of multipolarity. I mean, that is why, for example, we made sure that though there was enormous pressure on us, that we maintained our relationship with Russia. We made sure at a time when people who frankly, to my mind, were really not grasping geopolitics, felt why are you spending so much time with Europe. But I think we saw that Europe was developing a sharper strategic awareness of its own interests. Where the United States is concerned, again, yes, there is unpredictability, and therefore you at a systemic level you stabilize it with as many linkages and relationships as possible. With China, if you have to stand up to China, and we have had some very difficult periods, it is important that you prepare the capability. One of the really perplexing aspects of our China policy was the complete neglect of our border infrastructure in the previous decades.
Yes.
Now, when you say what has changed, I started off by saying, okay, you have a vision, but you need the groundwork. Now, to have a China policy and neglect your border infrastructure was absurd, and that is one of the things which has changed. If we have today that standing up for in defense of our national interest along the LAC, it is because we have built the border infrastructure to make that possible.
Right.
So, you need to have, again, you need to have that clarity. You need to envision the world today as multiple poles competing, but cooperating with each other. But here we try to have in a way the least problems and the most benefits.
Right.
You know,
right.
it's
That's the
in
most
that
rational.
sense that's a no brainer.
Yeah.
You know, and the country with the least problems and the most goodwill or the most relationships will be the one which will get actually the most out of world affairs at any given time.
Right, right, absolutely. I think that's again a very rational logic External Affairs Minister is giving us, viewers. I want to take him now to the another very significant aspect of the Modi era, which is our economic diplomacy. You yourself, Piyush Goyal ji, our Commerce Minister, Prime Minister himself, they've actually invested a lot of time and energies wooing foreign investors. Now we are doing so many free trade agreements with so many countries. We've opened up and integrating into supply chains with trusted partners, strategic partners, all these things. These also strike me as major achievements of last 11 years, and we are also seeing the results in increasing inflows of FDI, and our domestic economic growth is closely linked. So on this, how have we done? How would you rate our commercial diplomacy? And how well have you coordinated with the Commerce Ministry, and how are we negotiating and in a way crossing the Rubicon? Because earlier we have seen as very reluctant to engage with the world on economic matters, and we're very protectionist, and we've got a lot of barriers. But now it's a more confident India that's engaging on economic diplomacy, and seems like that's a previous point you made about extracting benefits for national interests. I think we are doing better on economic terms. So how would you assess, and what are your thoughts on our commercial diplomacy?
Well, number one, I would say no question we are putting much more weight, devoting more attention, energies to our economic, I would say in a way national development agenda. One reflection of that is a much tighter coordination between external affairs, commerce, finance, maybe some other department, industry, sometimes even defense, because it has some elements of it. A very also a clear sense that a lot of our external relationships and partnerships must be geared to those goals, that how do we get market access, better market access, because market access means more exports means more jobs at home, more jobs at home obviously has clearly social benefits. Same time, there are technology changes in the world. So how do you keep abreast? How do you work with other countries so that you absorb technology, you also enhance yours, you have opportunities to deploy your technology. So and sometimes it's resources, you seek capital, you seek investment, and here a lot of it again is very directly inspired by the Prime Minister. I can't think, he's actually even participated at times as a particularly to push the system in meetings that we do with all our commercial representatives. So I think there's a direct kind of drive coming.
So even our ambassadors, high commissioners, I believe they've got targets to achieve, and they're being asked to.
Even I look as someone who started on this almost 5 decades ago, the relative importance which an ambassador or a consul general or any diplomat would actually give today has shifted, much more in the direction of, I would say, economic diplomacy, or and to some, and something we can talk about with regard to the diaspora, because they are a bigger factor today. But overall, my answer to you is absolutely yes. What you said, we are also more interested in some key FTAs or trade agreements. All of them are not FTAs. Particularly, I would single out UK, which has been more or less finalized, EU, which is in a very advanced stage of negotiations, and United States, where we have decided in principle to do a bilateral trade agreement, which is I think they've done many rounds of negotiations in the last few months. Why I mentioned those three is what had happened with our economy is in the earlier years after the economic reform, most of our trade agreements were with countries economies east of India. So, what that has done in many ways, it has skewed the balance for us. Many of them are competing economies. They do not also give us the kind of market access which in fairness they should be doing. So, I think it is important to make that correction towards having an understanding with the more mature markets, with the ones which are more transparent or rule bound
and complementary to our.
And we have had some good significant achievements in the last 11 years. I mean the UAE FTA is
more
one.
than doubled.
Australia is another. So, I do think this is a space to watch.
Right. So, you have been often talking in public forums about the centrality of technology and technological change, and you see in most of the foreign relations today, technological cooperation and exchange has become very central. So, and we have also signed many agreements with key partners, and you have spoken about trust and trust building using technology as the basis. So, it will be great for our audiences if you can reflect on why you think tech has become such a central factor determining international relations today, and especially our efforts, what has been our strategy. Again, going back to the point about extracting the most from the world, how successful you think we have been in our technological and scientific diplomacy?
Well, when we speak of the world order, it was derived in some ways from the fact that the 5 permanent members of the Security Council all ended up as nuclear powers. They were not originally. When the UN was formed, in fact, none of them were, and each one of them acquired it. For many years in diplomacy, foreign policy, people would say, the most sweeping, impactful technology development was the nuclear age, entering the nuclear age. I would say today that the AI era actually makes the nuclear age look like a walk in the park, that it will be so sweeping, it will be so transformational, and it will not only impact balances and capabilities among countries, it actually impacts the daily life of every citizen. It will impact the politics of every country, it will shape the society, the economy in very profound ways. So, when you now see these new debates unfolding, chips war, semiconductors, data sovereignty, take this very seriously, because this is now what the fight, in a way, the competition is really about. And we have certain advantages, like any country, they are not automatically realized, you have to work to realize them. But look, we have embraced digital technology very sweepingly. In fact, I mean, for me, one of the interesting experiences of being such a prolific traveler, when I judge other societies, I find in many ways we are more digital in our daily lives than perhaps people in Europe or North America or Japan are. So, we generate a lot of data, we have a lot of talent. I mean, a lot of AI will of course depend on the hardware, on the energy to sustain the data centers. But this offers a very new pathway actually for developing the economy obviously, but also going up in the global hierarchy. So, I do think that other than metrics like GDP or military capabilities, today this technology, the technology strengths of a country again in the overall mix will have a much bigger say.
The ideation, sir, where does it come? For example, ISET, which we have with the US, it is a very advanced form of cooperation, critical and emerging technologies. We are doing similar things with Japan, so many other. So, is this like when you have your counterpart and we are discussing what are the new areas in which we can break fresh ground and suddenly the idea pops up, or is it coming from like, you know, there is a convergence and there are like bureaucracies on both sides, or you know, the private companies on both sides which are looking for joint ventures, and that's why these things come. So how does something like ISET happen, sir?
No, look, it's a mix, you know. I don't think good ideas are anybody's monopoly, you know. Systems have it, bureaucracies have it. I mean, don't underestimate the contribution of bureaucracies. Businesses obviously have it. So it would vary. I think ISET was partly outcome of the technology world meeting the national security world, and it was that junction box, you know, of the two countries which actually produced that.
Right. Dr. Jaishankar, you already mentioned diaspora a number of times, and obviously diaspora diplomacy has been one of the, you know, signature, you know, initiatives of the Modi era, and in previous shows you have done with us on Doordarshan, we spoke about this also. But there is one particular aspect about Indians abroad that is of great current interest, which is the safety and security of our citizens and also people of Indian origin abroad. Now on this you mentioned, gave examples of many crises during which we have done evacuations and rescue and all that. So you know, this aspect of making sure any Indian abroad will not be, you know, abandoned by Mother India, and that we will do whatever it is in our might to pull them out of trouble. You often hear this from the US government, and historically they even had, like, you know, hostage negotiation offices, and they invest a lot of resources in getting their citizens out of trouble, right? Now with India we are seeing that a lot in the Modi era, and I'd like you to talk about these operations we have done, and also why we have prioritized this, you know, as a matter of you know, central importance in our foreign policy.
Well, for a variety of reasons. You know, one, we are more global today. Number of Indians who travel out, you know, on tourism, people, number of students, number of business people, number of professionals, white collar, blue collar, who go out, all of them have increased. Okay. So if you look at our commitment, it's far more than it was earlier. But it isn't just that, you know, we want to actively build a global workforce. You know, we want to access economies and work opportunities beyond our shores. Now if you are going to do that in a credible and significant way, you know, your citizens must have a sense of security when they leave India. So that feeling that, look, the government has my back is very important if you are to create in people the confidence to explore global opportunities. The second part of it is also in a way the realization that these are all people, you could regard them as our national influencers in the world. You know, when I go abroad and meet communities, often my consistent line to them is, when people think of a country, of India, they put a face to it, they put an experience to it, they think of some Indian they have met, and that is for them India. Now if you have all these people who in a way, by their daily, I mean, you know, they do their own thing, but cumulatively they help our country. You know, I mean, they may help it in material terms also, that is a different issue. Now if you have people who are doing that, surely we have an obligation to them also. But here is my third point. See, often the sentiment was there, again it was growing, but you have to set up systems. You know, it cannot be something happened, so for that day you know, you came together, pulled everything and tried to respond to that situation. I don't have to only plan for a crisis. I have to plan for every day, because every day, let us say 20 million Indians are physically outside, nationals are outside my shores, maybe another 15 million PIOs.
Yeah.
So, therefore, what it's something Prime Minister Modi got us working very early. I think even in 2015, set up a grievance system. Let there be, that's how the Mother portal came into being. Set up a fund, because in an emergency people need resources. If they wait for resources, emergency is over, it's no use. Set up response systems. I have a rapid reaction cell in the Ministry of External Affairs. We have already protocols worked out with different arms of the government if we need them. If it is the Navy, if it is the Air Force, if it is civil aviation. I don't start every episode on a clean slate. People have already thought it through. That is the reason why we are actually working. So, we sometimes tend to underestimate the power of actually creating systems for contingencies, and sometimes for daily backup, and that is what is today delivering.
Right. Yeah, preparation and systematic approach always makes a difference rather than ad hoc. Dr. Jaishankar, just extending this system point a little bit, MEA, you have served in it for decades now in different capacities. How has MEA and the MEA system, let's say, or the administrative structure been reformed in the Modi period, last 11 years? If you were to pinpoint one or two big changes. I remember some years ago you made a very strong statement about, yes, our diplomats are far more nationalistic today and they are trained to give it back to our adversaries and all those things, and you spoke about an attitudinal shift, greater self-confidence among our IFS officers, but also interagency coordination. Would you like to speak about some of the administrative changes and reforms that you have undertaken or led, especially and including of course in the when you were foreign secretary and as external affairs minister, and in PM's time there's been this slogan of maximum governance, minimum government. So that maximum governance part of MEA, how would you see how have we changed?
In a variety of ways. We've opened many more embassies, many more consulates, a shift to more economic, community related, technology focused. I think if you ask Indian businesses going abroad, they will almost uniformly tell you they get much more proactive support from embassies and consulates than they did earlier. In terms of our own work style, I would say we are far more rigorous. It's because as the pace quickens, as the results, you are more demanding of results, you are more tougher on performance evaluation. It has an impact over a period of time. I mean, in many ways, I would say when I look at a young officer today in the Ministry of External Affairs compared to what I would have been at that stage, their both their exposure is more, their training is much more intensive. I would say language skills, there is a far greater professionalization of people. We have created more specialists, both domain specialists and area specialists. So it's sort of it's a combination of all of that. So I think what it has done is it has created the ability. I mean, if you look at it, these 11 years, you had the whole COVID era, which actually put a huge responsibility on the foreign ministry. You have had this lot of these operations of various kinds. You have had very complex situations. We have had many more development projects. Today we have delivered more than 600 development projects in 78 countries across the world. So they also have to have that ability to actually now work on development projects and get things done in foreign countries in very demanding and sort of situations where not all factors are under their control. So, I would say the ability to execute complex tasks, the ability to carry greater responsibilities, that is very visible in the ministry.
And the numbers are also somewhat increasing now. So, the intake we are
numbers are growing, they are growing steadily. Sure.
Now, last but not least, Dr. Jaishankar, we are entering the 12th year of the Modi era, and PM in 2022 at the onset of the Amrit Kal, this great period of promise for next 25 years, he had laid out some what he called the Panchapran, or the 5 resolutions for the country, and some of them still echo in my mind, one of which was every citizen should have a sense of duty and responsibility to the nation. He, like a teacher, he has been promoting this idea that duties and responsibilities also matter. It's not just about asserting your rights against the state. So, what are your thoughts on what should ordinary Indians do going forward? Because we have set the goals, like you said, for the Amrit Kal, but to achieve that, you need a certain set of behaviors and attitudes and values on the part of the population also. And I would request you to tell our audiences what you expect from people of India. I mean, people of India expect a lot from you, and people admire you so much, and they follow you. But what is the government's expectation from the people, and how should we unify, and how should we as a society come together to achieve these goal of leading power, for example? Do you think Indians have understood even the importance of this pursuit of Viksit Bharat or leading power? Do you think they see value in it, any concrete benefit in it, or do you think this is just some kind of elite goal that is set by Modi Sarkar? So, I would like you to address the people of India and what you think they should be doing to propel the state forward as it tries to go to the higher levels in the international order.
Well, I think in many ways the people of India are already doing it. So, what is it they are doing? They are today far more involved in foreign affairs than they have ever been. When I travel out of Delhi, I go not just state capitals, but even to smaller towns and cities. Actually, it's very impressive, the levels of interest which people take. Now, this doesn't have to be an educational institution or a specialist group. It can be even if you go to professional organizations, if you go even to, in a sense, ordinary people, there is a certain buzz. There are a variety of reasons for it. One, because of smartphones, our awareness of the world, our ability to communicate, the gap between the world and us has decreased. Part of it, as I said, more and more people travel out. If they don't travel out, they know somebody who's traveled out, somebody in the family has traveled out. Information is coming to them in ways in which it is not. But also, I think a realization that things which happen in the world affect us. That war happens in Ukraine, but your petrol price can go up. Or pandemic starts somewhere else, say it comes home to impact your health. So, or even national security crisis, the threat of terrorism, for example. So, what has happened is, I feel actually the average citizen today is far more aware of foreign policy, far more aware of the world, and it's also, to be honest, Sreeram, we are also changing. People have much greater confidence, a strong sense of pride. People want to see India do well, and if they so its awareness of the world is paralleled with a feeling that I must look, I must be respected in the world, I must look good in the world, I have interests in the world, all of which
that aspirational India is rising to the fore.
And not just aspirational India, a globalized India. So, what you say that what should people be doing? I think people are already doing it. And part of the reason why we see much more interest today being taken in foreign affairs, why you and I are sitting here, is because of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And viewers, we've had this extensive conversation with External Affairs Minister Dr. Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, covering so many facets of Indian foreign policy in the Modi era. 11 years and counting, we are entering the 12th year. And Dr. Jaishankar's message is people of India are already doing what they should be doing at this historic juncture in the nation. We are unifying as a people, we are more nationalistic, and we are also more engaged with the world. And the message, the main takeaway is that we cannot neglect what happens outside our borders, even in faraway parts of the world, and just assume that things will be fine. Actually, everything is interconnected, and therefore as India rises, India connects with the rest of the world, we will need to be also knowing and engaging and participating and being involved in global affairs. And no person more than Dr. Jaishankar has actually brought this message and popularized it over the last several years. His youth following is of a different level. I don't even have to mention this. And the reason is he has ignited that curiosity which is already there in the society, but which is now coming to the surge about foreign affairs. I want to thank Honorable Minister for sparing time for us and for continuing to take the Modi era forward in terms of our foreign policy. I greatly appreciate your vision and leadership, sir, and please believe me, the people of India are fully behind you.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
That's all, viewers, in this special episode of Indian Diplomacy. Do reflect and write and contact us about what Dr. Jaishankar told us and what your thoughts are, and we should continue this conversation, because that is part of the rise of India. Because the more we are into diplomacy and foreign policy, the stronger we become and the more prosperous we are, and the better it is for our core interests. So thank you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Until then, take care.